Alright guys, Miss Monserrati here. Sorry, I don't get to spend so much time with you. And I miss you. So I'm going to do lessons, record some more than I have been. Since we're testing. Alright, so our goal here for this, we're in Unit 4. We're in Lesson 3. We did 1 and 2. Right, we learned about a little bit about colonies. Moving to America. Just to get a little reminder of what we did, right? We looked at the we're in Unit 4. We're talking about life in the colonies. We talked about the different ways, right? They had plantations. Oops, sorry, you can't see my book. They would have cash crops, proprietors, indentured servants. They were self-sufficient, right? They could take care of themselves. They got a grant. They got someone gave them something to help them out. So we're reading about the colonies and settling them, right? The 3 different colonies, the southern colonies, the New England colonies, and the middle colonies. There they are, the New England colonies, the middle colonies, and the southern colonies. And our next lesson 2, hopefully you guys read it all. Right, I actually didn't go over these words, so I think we should do that tomorrow. I kind of just threw it at you to go do it. We're talking about how they were established, the English colonies. What happened to them? Why were they established? The southern colonies. Why were they established? What did they do there in these colonies? And the middle colonies. And, sorry, and the New England colonies. And the middle colonies. Alright, sorry, the first one was just about, I should just start over, I'm tired. So, the first one was just about establishing colonies, right? And then there's the 3 different types, the 3 different parts of the colonies. The southern, the New England, and the middle colonies, right? I broke them up into 3 groups, those 13 colonies. I categorized them. Alright, so here is our next lesson. This is what I was going to do, is read it for you so you can follow along. So, we're going to be describing the religious aspects of the earliest colonies. Right, that sounds crazy, but we're just going to be writing a 5-paragraph essay talking about what was religious life like in the colonies. How did religion affect the founding of the colonies? Setting the scene, right? What was it like? One thing many early colonists had in common was a strong religious faith. However, the colonists practiced religion in different ways. Hopefully you remember reading about some religions founding colonies when we were reading the New England in the middle and the southern colonies, right? The Catholics, escaping religious persecution. There was the Quakers, right? So there was other ones, establishing a colony for people of all religions. So, right, religion was a big reason. All right, when I'm reading, sorry, we'll do vocabulary first. Intolerant. It's an adjective, right? It describes something. To be not accepting of ideas or behaviors different from one's own. So if you are intolerant, you just can't stand it, right? We talked about lactose intolerant. Your body does not like milk, lactose, the ingredient in milk that your body doesn't like. So here is our vocabulary activity. The prefix in and un means not, right? If you are tolerant of something, you can take it. You tolerate it. You're okay with it. If you are intolerant, you do not. Sometimes I put the word un in front of something to make it not as well. Circle the prefix and the vocabulary word above. Then write a definition for the root word based on what you know about the meaning of the prefix. So, I'm going to say un. We're going to write a definition for the root word. Tolerant. I guess it would be tolerate, tolerant. Okay. I'm just making up one. Right, it said not accepting of ideas. So I'm just going to say accepting of ideas. Just a quick definition. Alright, the other thing we're going to look for while we're reading, so try and see if we can find some un-words in here or in-words while we're reading. And we're definitely will look for the word intolerant. And here's a person we should watch for, Anne Hutchinson. So reading, make generalizations. Remember that to make generalizations, you use facts from the text to write statements that are true most of the time. As you read the first paragraph on page 78, place check marks next to sentences that contain facts about religious laws in the colonies. Alright, so because I'm going to be writing about what was life like in the early colonies, I'm going to just take some notes while I'm reading. So I might take their suggestion and make a check mark next to sentences that contain facts about religious laws in the colonies. Alright, so religion in the colonies. You have learned that some people came to North America to find a place to worship freely. In fact, every colony had laws that officially allowed freedom of religion. Check. However, most colonies had established churches too. I guess that has to do with religion, right? They had even churches. They had freedom of religion, but they also had churches. An established church is a religious group that is supported by the government. Laws said that even people who did not belong to this group had to pay taxes to support it. The conflict between religious freedom and established churches played a key role in the development of some colonies. Right, so they're saying that the government had to pay for the churches to make sure the churches survived. The New England Puritans. The colony of Massachusetts began as a place for Puritans to practice their religion freely. However, only Puritan church members could vote, and church leaders called ministers held a lot of power. Just to remind you, the word Puritan was in the lesson too, so hopefully you guys read that. A person from England who wanted to improve the Church of England. So when they lived over in England, they had the Church of England, which was run by the king. Sorry, I'm getting my map without dropping my phone. So, there's England. Over here. Right, there's Europe. Here's England. Far away from home. Alright. I didn't take any notes yet. Some of these leaders were intolerant or not accepting of ideas or behaviors different from their own. People who disagreed with Puritan leaders began to leave Massachusetts. Thomas Hooker, a minister, did not agree that only church members should rule. He left the colony and founded Hartford, which later became part of the colony of Connecticut. Roger Williams was forced to leave Massachusetts for his beliefs too. As a result, he founded the colony of Rhode Island, whose charter stated that no one could be punished for any differences in opinion in matter of religion. So this is kind of a law, right? They had a charter that said this when they were founding their state of Rhode Island. Anne Hutchinson also challenged the power of Puritan leaders when she began leading her own religious meetings. Like Williams, Hutchinson was forced to leave the colony and move to Rhode Island, so they got kicked out of where they lived. Underline a sentence in the text that makes a generalization about the role of religion in the development of colonies. So a generalization, right? It's just a real how did they word it? That are true most of the time. So we're going to look, most of the time this was true about developing religion in the colonies. So I'm just kind of skimming over here. Every colony had laws that officially allowed freedom of religion. Yep. However, most colonies had established churches. Let's see. Laws said that even people who did not belong to the group had to pay taxes to support it. Oh, now we're talking about generalizations about the role of religion in the development of the colonies. I think I see the one they're asking about. The conflict between religious freedom and established churches played a role in the development of some colonies, right? I'm even looking what they're saying there. Right, they already had established churches along the way, and they wanted to practice their own freedom of religion, which means they wanted to start another church. All right, the colony of Massachusetts. Sorry. What caused people to leave the Massachusetts Bay Colony? So if we look down to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, people disagreed with Puritan leaders, began to leave Massachusetts, right? They did not want them to start their own churches, right? Only Puritan church members could vote, and church leaders called ministers held a lot of power. People who disagreed with the Puritan leaders began to leave Massachusetts. So it said, what caused people to leave the Massachusetts Bay Colony? People disagreed with the Puritan, let's use one of the words that they're talking about here, leaders, and left Massachusetts. I'm going to even abbreviate Massachusetts because I can't fit it right there. All right, religion in the southern colonies, right? This was in the New England colonies. We're going down to the southern colonies now. Established, and there was a little baby map over here, right? We just talked about New England. Now we're going to the southern. I'm going to start in the middle. All right. Religion in the southern colonies. Established churches played an important role in the southern colonies too. Anglicanism, or the Church of England, was the established church of Virginia. John Smith recalled that from the earliest days, we had daily common prayer, morning and evening, every Sunday 2 sermons. Lord Baltimore founded Maryland as a place where Catholics who were persecuted in England could live in peace. However, many non-Catholics also moved there, and leaders soon passed a law giving religious freedom to all Christians. Right, so they're trying to tell us the founding. So we're going to look over here at this question. How was the founding of Maryland like the founding of Rhode Island? So, right, the founding of Maryland was because they wanted to get away and be able to practice their Catholicism. Right? And the reason they left Massachusetts, right, 2 people left Massachusetts. One of them went to, Connecticut, but Roger Williams left Massachusetts for his religious beliefs also, right? He went to Rhode Island, and then started his charter of his state for any differences in opinion, and they could not be punished for any differences in opinion in matters of religion. So how was the founding of Maryland like the founding of Rhode Island? Compare and contrast. I'm going to say both Maryland and Rhode Island were founded, that's my name when I start a new place, right? Were founded they were trying to get away from being persecuted and people trying to give them a hard time for practicing their religion, right? Over here, he said they didn't want to be punished anymore. They couldn't be punished. So how about that? We'll use that word. Both Maryland and Rhode Island were founded to stop people from being punished because of religion. Right, this is how they were the same. I can contrast them too, right? The people in Rhode Island came from the southern colonies. Sorry, they were moving from England, right? That's how I could contrast them. I'm not going to because I ran out of room to write. So I'll just cross out contrast for right now. I just compared them, how they were the same, right? I could also say how they were different, that Rhode Island was founded because people came there from England, whereas, did I say it backwards? Maryland, yes I did. Maryland was founded by people coming from England, and Rhode Island was founded by people coming from Massachusetts, which they were probably originally coming from England too, but okay. So, religion in the middle colonies. Unlike the other colonial regions, people from many religions lived in the middle colonies. People from a variety of countries, cultures, and religions settled in the colony of New York. Pennsylvania and Delaware did not have established churches, so people from many different religious groups settled there too. In Pennsylvania, a group called Quakers welcomed people of all religions and backgrounds. The Quakers believed in leading a simple life. They preferred simple styles of clothing and buildings and opposed war and other acts of violence. Right? We still have Quakers that live in our society today in parts of America, and they still don't. They don't watch TVs and stuff like that. Anyway, underline a sentence that gives details about the beliefs of the Pennsylvania Quakers. So can we just underline this last one we read? The Quakers believed in leading a simple life. So, Quakers go to meetings but have no regular services or ministers. Instead, they believe people should pray in a way that feels right to them. Alright, so here is my summary. Religion was an important part of life in the English colonies. Describe the effect of religion in the 3 colonial regions. We're going to do 5 paragraphs, so we'll do an easy one, quick one. Alright, we were going to learn about Anne Hutchinson, right? Here she is. Anne Hutchinson, 1591 to 1643. Anne Hutchinson spent her life in pursuit of religious freedom. Her religious beliefs were greatly influenced by a minister named John Cotton, and her father, who was also a minister. Hutchinson's father was not afraid to speak his mind. He was twice sent to prison in England for speaking out against the Church of England. In 1633, John Cotton was forced to leave England because of his beliefs. Hutchinson and her family followed Cotton to Boston. In Boston, Hutchinson spoke freely about her beliefs. She held meetings in her home where she taught that faith was more important than following the rules of the established church. Some colonial leaders disapproved of Hutchinson's beliefs. They took her to court, and she was forced to leave the colony. She moved first to Rhode Island, which had been founded on the promise of religious freedom, and later to New York. The risk taken by Hutchinson and others like her helped establish the freedom of religion in the United States today. So, underline the events of Hutchinson's father's life and in John Cotton's life that taught her about standing up for her beliefs. So, right, there's a minister named John Cotton and her father. They were also ministers. Her father was not afraid to speak his mind. Right, so Hutchinson's father was not afraid to speak his mind. We'll underline that. So part of, right, Cotton had to leave England, and Hutchinson and her family followed Cotton to Boston. Why Why do you think church leaders disapproved of Hutchinson's actions? Let's see. They didn't want people to teach about religion. Well, one thing probably is the church had a lot of money and stuff. It doesn't really tell you. We're just interpreting, right? I can look at it all on my own. So, in my opinion, I'm going to have you guys write, I think, why do you think the church leaders didn't like Hutchinson's actions, right, for speaking out against on her own? She taught that faith was more important than following the rules of an established church. So, you can tell in your own words. I'm tired. All right, so we're going to write about what was religious life like in the earliest colonies. So, right, that was my question. So you can start with that, right? And I can even give it a title. Religion. How about in the colonies? And I was going to kind of do notes, but I kind of did them on the side of my paper over here. All right. Religion in the colonies. So first thing I'm going to tell is about the religious life in the colonies. I'm going to go over here. You have learned that some people came to North America to find a place to worship freely. In fact, every colony had laws that officially allowed freedom of religion. So I'm going to say, in the early colonies, each had a law allowing freedom of religion. Period. All right, so I have one sentence, right? I indent here. I left room here when I start writing. And then I write, and then I'll keep going. From now on, I will go to the edge of the paper. And I will always go to the edge of the paper here. So now we're going to talk about the 3 colonies. So I'm going to just kind of go over here, right? The colony of Massachusetts, the New England Puritans wanted a place for the Puritans to practice. They were intolerant of people that were not like themselves. So people who disagreed with the Puritan leaders began to leave Massachusetts. So just to talk about the middle colonies, or the New England colonies. Many, Puritan members lived in the New, I have to capitalize New and England colonies, right? And I was talking about them having laws that allowed freedom of religion, where church members could vote. It's almost the opposite of freedom of religion, right? The church members could vote. New England colonies where church members could vote. All right, I'm going to go on to the southern colonies over here. So, right, they established churches over here. They passed laws giving religious freedom to all Christians in the southern colonies. So we're going to say, in the southern colonies, all Christians were allowed religious freedom. I'll put a capital C for Christians. In the southern colonies, all Christians were given religious freedom by law. Right? I made it a passive sentence by moving my subject and my predicate around. Sorry, we talked about it a little bit, but I shouldn't throw big words at you guys like that. But I know you'll keep hearing them. You'll predicate, subject, what was that again? All right, so now I have 1, 2, 3 sentences. Right? I need one more. I wrote about the New England colonies. I wrote about the southern colonies. I'm missing the middle colonies. Unlike the other colonial regions, people from many religions lived in the middle colony. So that's what I'm going to write about. People from a variety of countries, cultures, and religions settled in the colony of New York, right? The Quakers even lived here. They wanted a simple life. So I'm going to talk about the middle colonies had many different religions. Right here were Christians. Over here were Puritans. The middle colonies people from many religions lived in the middle colony. The middle colonies had people from many different to us religions living there. All right, one last sentence. It's going to be something like my first, right? My question was, what was religious life like in the earliest colonies? In the early colonies, each had a law allowing freedom of religion. So I'm talking about the law in the early colonies, right? What was religious life like in the earliest colonies? There were laws protecting religious life in the early colonies. Right, this is now where I go back, fix things, make it prettier, and then rewrite it beautiful. One thing I would definitely change now is my title, because after writing it, I realized I wrote about law. I stuck with one topic, the law in this colony, the law in these colonies, and the law in this colony. So I'm going to say religion and law in the colonies. Maybe I'd even add the word early here, right? This is where I go through and I edit, I proof it. That was what your test was, right? In the early colonies, each had a law allowing freedom of religion. So I'm going to use a pronoun here, or a replacement there, right? In the early colonies, each one had a law allowing freedom of religion. many Puritan members lived in the New England colonies, where church members could vote. It's okay. I would probably change it around a little bit. Many Puritan members lived in the New England colonies where church members could vote. All right. In the southern colonies, all Christians were given religious freedom by law. The middle colonies had people from many different religions living there. I would definitely go back and fix a couple things here, but I don't want you, so you guys can do that for me. And you could copy mine, rewrite it, and send it in. There were laws protecting religious life in the early colonies. The end.